Hi everyone, it's Erin from the Provincial Farmhouse. Today I'm going to be creating a Christmas Winter Wonderland book. For my project, I'm going to be using this hardcover book that I thrifted. I'm going to be opening it to approximately the center, and then I'm going to be using my Sealy's Quickset wood glue. I'm going to pour some of that out into a plastic container and then water it down. I'm then going to start adding that watered down glue mixture over the top of the book pages, the sides, all of the edges. This helps to stiffen the pages, and then I'm going to start adding hot glue to the edges and staggering the books up and sort of curving them up so that they look like they have been open to these pages for a long time. I've done several of these books and I have quite a few videos on how to do them with more in-depth tutorials, but basically, as you can see here, I'm just sort of curling those top pages up and I'm just constantly adding more of that glue mixture, both the watered down mixture and the undiluted one. So I'm repeating the same process on the other side, staggering those book pages so we have that lovely curved shape, and then once I have that secured, I am going to begin curling the book corners on the other side as well. Once I have the book open and looking the way that I want, I do then go in and add some more glue to the bottom and top edges as well, just until I am positive that it is all secure and that it's going to maintain that shape that we want. After a few hours, when that's dry, I took out Paint Couture's Farmhouse Linen Chalk Paint. I'm going to be applying 2 coats of this over the entire inside of that book, going over all the pages. I picked this sort of brighter white because of the paper that I'm going to be working with, but you can obviously put whatever color you want down at this stage. Once my 2 coats of chalk paint were completely dry, I took out Redesign's beautiful new A4 fibre paper. This one is from their latest release. It is called Winter Hearth, and it is reversible, so you can swap the orientation of the houses to fit your project. I'm going to go in and trim off that information on the right hand side there, and then I'm going to be using Redesign's Decoupage Gel Matte. I'm going to lay down a generous coat on both sides of the book there, so really generous, and then I'm going to find the center of my fiber paper there and I'm going to work that into the center part of the book, and then I'm going to start smoothing it down. Now, I should have ironed this first. I just got really excited and wanted to get started, so I did forget. However, I am able to soften the folds there that you can see the creases by adding lots of product and sort of pulling it tight as I am adding that product over the top to decoupage it down. So I'm just going to repeat the same process on the other side to soften the folds as well and to make sure everything's decoupaged down. And if this happens to you, you forget like me, you get excited and you just want to get things going and you see that you've got creases, I will show you how I fixed mine. I let this dry completely, and then I took out some baking paper and also my iron, which I had on the cotton setting, and I'm just really gently and quickly going in and applying a little bit of pressure over the top of where the creases are, and I found that this softened them enough, but definitely iron those papers before you use them so you don't have to worry about this. Next, I took out Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in Satin. I'm going to apply this over the top of my dry decoupage medium. I still felt like there was a porous nature to that decoupage gel, and I wanted to make sure I could wipe back anything, any errors that I made. Next, I took out Redesign's Cardinal Cheer Mould. I'm going to be dusting the holly style designs there with cornstarch, and then I'm working my Das air dry clay into one of those, and then going to flex the mold and flip it over to release my casting. And I am going to be having this up in the top corners of the book. I'm then going to be casting the other one as well. I ended up casting 2 of these to go up the top, and then you will see a bit later that I do some more partial castings. It just felt a little bit too full doing it that way. I then took out my Angelic Floral Noel mold here by Redesign, and I'm going to be casting that beautiful bell that's there that also has the lovely holly details. And I'm going to repeat that same process, flexing that mold before I try and release it. It definitely helps. And I'm going to be making 2 of these to go in the top corners along with the beautiful foliage there. So here I'm going to do the partial castings that I was talking about from the Cardinal Cheer mold. I am going to be adding those just underneath the bell. As you can see, I've taken away the full castings because it felt too heavy having those hanging down as well as going across the top. So they are going to be sitting up the top there. I then took out Redesign's Evergreen Christmas Magic mold. I'm going to be dusting the medium-sized tree from that mold with cornstarch, and then I'm going to work my Das air dry clay into that mold. So as you can see, I'm pushing it out of the sides. You can use resin if you are not confident with clay, but I like clay because it molds better to the surface. So I'm just removing that excess clay, and then I'm going to flex the mold, and then I'm going to remove the tree. So that one's going to go on the left, and then I'm going to cast the smaller tree from that same mold, just repeating that same process. This one I am going to have go on the right hand side. I did end up casting another larger tree to go on the right as well a bit later. I'm then going to be casting the very sweet sitting deer. I want that to go on the right hand side. And this one was a little bit delicate, so I did have to be a bit gentle with that. And then I'm going to be casting that larger stag style deer there. Again, this one was delicate. Pop your molds in the freezer for about 10 minutes before you take them out or take the castings out. This can be helpful with getting less breakage of those thinner parts. So the stag's going to go on the left-hand side, and then I went in and started gluing my pieces down with that Sealy's Quickset wood glue. On the right-hand side down the bottom, you can see I have cast another one of those medium-sized trees, and I did end up actually just sort of tearing off the trunk of that tree so that it would fit a bit better there, as you can see. So I'm just layering. I ended up cutting some more of the tree away so that that deer would sit a bit better, and I had to re-glue her head on because it came off. And then I'm gluing the left-hand side pieces on as well. As you can see up the top, I do have a gap that is noticeable where the paper ends before the book does, so I need to disguise that. I'm going to be using Paint Couture's Duck Egg chalk paint and also that Farmhouse linen, and I'm going to water it down and start dabbing it up the top there and mixing in some of that Farmhouse linen here and there. I just want to disguise that gap, make it look a little bit more seamless. I definitely could have found a book that fit it exactly, but then I probably wouldn't have been able to have as many molds. So I did like that I was able to stretch the design out a bit here. So I'm just going to continue adding that duck egg and the Farmhouse linen until I am happy with it and until I'm happy with how disguised it is. I'm also adding some of it behind the details of the bells and foliage. When that was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Light Brown Sugar Antiquing Glaze. I'm going to be using this over the top of my castings. I really like to do this because it sinks down into all of those low points. It gives a bit more definition to the project, or the molds rather, and I am using a wet wipe to pull back the excess. So I'm doing this because at this stage I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to approach this in terms of a color scheme, and adding the glaze really helps me to visualize how things are going to look. I love the warmth of it as well. So even though I do end up painting over quite a bit of it, I do add some to the decoupage paper to give it a bit more of a vintage and sort of glow look. And I am adding it to the book pages and edges as well. When the glaze was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Abyss chalk paint. and also pitch black chalk paint. I'm going to be combining the two to create a darker blue. I decided I wanted to try and tie in with the colors that were in the decoupage paper. So I'm going to be painting the trees that are sitting in front of the trees in the decoupage paper in a similar color. So I'm just sort of combining those two colors together, then adding a bit more black here and there where it's needed. This was a bit of an experiment, and I just sort of adapted it as I went until I was happy with how it looked. I then decided to also add it to the foliage that is up the top there. I'm focusing mainly on the Cardinal cheer molds to start off with. I don't mind if I go over the top of the holly berries. I'll be painting over the top of those anyway. At this stage, I did leave out the holly that was around the bell that we have in the corner. I am trying my best to get down the sides of the molds as well. And once I'd finished doing that, I did take out Evergreen chalk paint. I'm just going to layer that over the top of the sections of holly that are with the bell. I felt like this was dark enough. I did add in a little bit of black here and there to deepen it. I'm really going for those dark, moody colors to tie in with the decoupage design. So I'm repeating the same process on both the top right and top left molds. When the chalk paint was dry, I took out Paint Couture's Amazon Lux Metallic. I'm going to be brushing this over the top. I am not going for full coverage. I'm going to go over the top of all of the greenery or foliage molds up the top. You'll still be able to see the chalk paint underneath. I really love to add metallics to my Christmas projects. I think it adds to that magic. When that Amazon Lux Metallic was dry, I took out Cardinal Red Lux Metallic, and I'm using this to go over the top of the berries on those molds. I really want these to tie together with the details on that decoupage paper. When I finished adding that to the larger berries, I flipped my paintbrush around and I'm dipping the end in that Cardinal Red and then dabbing this on the smaller berries that are visible on the holly that's next to that bell. And of course, whatever I do on the right-hand side, I am repeating on the left-hand side. I then decided that I wanted to go in and lightly dab that Cardinal Red over the top of the berries on the decoupage paper. Again, I do want to tie the decoupage paper in with the mold, so I'm just adding a little bit of this on top of the berries, and then I'm gently dabbing some of it away. I still want to be able to see the details underneath, but I do want to tone that red a bit more so it all ties together. On the bells in the top right and left hand corners, I'm using bronze Lux Metallic, and in this particular mold design there is also some banners. I'm going to be painting those with the same bronze as well. I think this will really help them to stand out. I wanted to add some metallics to the trees, so I'm using Paint Couture's Mercury Lux Metallic and I'm brushing that over the top of our trees. So I could have left them in that chalk paint color, but I really love the shine that these Lux Metallics bring, so I'm just going to brush that Mercury over the top of the trees, and if I miss a few spots, it doesn't matter. I'm also going to lightly brush the Mercury over the top of the molds up the top. Wherever we have that Amazon, you'll still be able to see the Amazon. This is going to bring in a bit more of that blue tone. Again, I am looking at that decoupage paper for guidance when it comes to the colors. Just like I did with the berries, I'm going to be using that Mercury on some of the foliage in the background of the decoupage paper there. Again, just to tie those colors together, and I'm going to dab some of it back as well. This is very subtle, but I think it helps to tie it all in. And I'm also going to repeat the same process on the trees as well at the front. When that was dry, I took out Oyster Pearl Lux Metallic, and I'm going to be dabbing that onto parts of the trees, the tree molds. Again, I am trying to have it go well with the decoupage paper, so I'm just using that as a bit of a guide. I'm first adding it in sort of lines and skipping certain areas, and then sort of dabbing it in some of the in-between sections, just trying to make it look a little bit more natural. Moving on to the deers, I am using Walnut Lux Metallic on them. I've got a small artist brush and I'm going to go over the top of the deers. I am concentrating on the top sections of the deers, and then I will be changing angles so that I can get around to the sides. And again, just trying really hard to keep my paint neat, but I do have that top coat down so I can wipe away any mistakes. I'm obviously repeating the same process with the stag on the left. I don't want to lose the definition on those molds, so when that was dry, I took out Oyster Pearl again. I'm going to get some on my brush and then offload it, and then I'm going to do some dry brushing with that metallic. So I'm just lightly going over the top of the deer to bring out that definition again, to show those beautiful details, but doing it with a metallic so I'm able to maintain that shine. And I'm then going to repeat the same process for our little deer on the right. I really loved the frosty look that this created, so I also went in and added that lightly over the top of the details on the molds up the top. I'm mainly focusing it on the foliage and the berries. I got a little bit on the sections where I have the bronze on the bells and the banner, but I do end up going back over the top of those sections so that there's not as much there. To create a 3D snow effect, I'm using Paint Couture's Crust Medium and a palette knife, and I'm going to begin adding it to the bottom section. I'm sort of scraping it on, and then I'm going back over the top of it, dabbing at it to create raised peaks. I'm going to be adding it behind the deer and also a little bit over the deer's feet. I did end up building it up a little bit higher than I wanted, which you'll see shortly, but I do fix that later on as well, because I went a little bit too high here, as you can see, and yeah, it's pretty easily wiped away with a wet wipe. So definitely make sure you get that clear coat down so that you have that option when you're crafting. So I'm going to add the crust around the deer's feet, and then I'm going to also add it over on the right hand side. To add a bit more shine, I'm using Paint Couture's Sheer Frost German Glitter, and I'm sprinkling that over the top of my still wet crust medium. It's going to stick to that really well, and it's just going to add to that sparkly, shimmery snow look. I then added some crust to the house that's closest to the forefront there, and I'm just focusing it on the roof of the house. I'm just going to be adding it to the roof of this house. I felt like it would be a little bit overboard to add it to every roof, but this was just a nice effect that I thought, and again, just brings in a bit more dimension. So I'm just adding it, and then I am going to add some of that Sheer Frost German glass glitter there as well. Next, I decided that I would also add some crust medium in the corners, the top corners of the book, to tie those different corners together. So I'm working that into that little curved area there near the bell. I'm also going to be adding it on the left hand side as well, and then also along the book edges. I really wanted this to have a really wintry, frosty feel. As the title suggests, I wanted this to look like a winter wonderland, and this crust definitely helps to add to that snowy look. Once I finished adding it up the top, I decided that I would repeat the same process, but just pop it on the edges of the book there, just in that small little section. And again, if I get too much in an area, I am able to then go in with a wet wipe and carefully wipe that away before it's dry. I want to add some glitter to the foliage in the top corners, so I'm using Paint Couture's Extreme Guard in satin as a glue. I'm going to run that over the top of the foliage. It is clear. I didn't want to add anything else because I wanted to keep the look, to keep how it looks. So the clear coat is a really good option for that. So while that and the crust medium is still wet, I'm sprinkling that Sheer Frost German glass glitter over the top. Next, I took out my bronze Lux Metallic again, and I'm going to be adding this to the book page edges. I really love those old books that have the gold on the edges of the paper, so I'm trying to sort of replicate that look here. So I'm adding it to the edges. I'm also then going to be adding it to the corners as well, and also the top and bottom edges as well. Now, if bronze isn't to your taste, obviously you could come in with a different metallic. A silver would probably look really lovely as well. I just really love the bronze. I then took out Paint Couture's Mercury Lux Metallic again, and I'm going to be using this on the edge of the book cover that you can see. I'm going to go around and just carefully add a thin border of this beautiful metallic, and then later on I did also go in and add this same metallic to the book cover itself. If I inspire you to try any of the Paint Couture or Redesign products used in today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would use my affiliate links. You will find them in the description below. When that was dry, I took out Redesign's Santa's Helper tags. This is from last year. I really loved the Merry Christmas design here, and I always love to add a little bit of typography if I can to my projects. So I'm going to use a permanent black ink on the Merry section first. I'm going to wipe off the excess from the top and down the bottom. I want to have Merry on one page and the word Christmas on the other. So I'm going to position that just above the house there, and I'm going to press that down, and then I'm going to carefully lift that up, and then I'm repeating the same process with the word Christmas on the right hand side. If you don't have access to a Merry Christmas stamp, a stencil could work as well. I cleaned up that little bit of ink that was up the top above the word Christmas there, and then when that was dry, I took out this gold ink pad that I had that I got from Office Works Australia. I'm going to tidy up around the edges, and then I'm going to use this over the top of the word Merry. I wanted to bring in more of that beautiful gold, and I felt like this really made it stand out a bit more, so I'm adding that over the word Christmas as well. And having that black underneath gives the letters a bit more definition. I then heat set the ink with my hairdryer over the top of it for about a minute, and then I took out this beautiful dark navy velvet ribbon. I'm going to have that down the center. I'm going to cut it to size, and then I'm going to be attaching it just inside the book spine there with hot glue. I love this navy ribbon. I think it ties in really well with this color scheme. And here's a look at our finished Christmas Winter Wonderland book. I stepped out of my comfort zone a bit with this project. I definitely used a lot of colors that I don't usually use, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. If you enjoyed today's video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, comment, and share it out. If you haven't already, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our videos. You can find a full product list and my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks for watching.